So a couple of weeks back, I did a full unboxing of this. You can find that right up here. And so I actually want to do a review of the Genesis broadcasts, the BBC broadcast. So I got the vinyl edition and I also got the CD edition. So the way that I'm going to structure this little review, as opposed to my usual kind of album reviews, is it's going to be a little bit more loosey-goosey. I'm not going to have the title card or anything as the intro. I'm just going to dive right into it. I'm going to review the LP first, as like just looking at the LP as its own. I'm going to look at the CD box set as its own, and then I'm going to kind of synthesize and talk about it as a full project. So the LP, the BBC broadcast on record, comes in 3 discs, and it's a gorgeous package, in terms of I wouldn't necessarily call this a box set, because this is just a regular, trifold, you got their 1, 2, 3 records. So I wouldn't necessarily call this a box set. And I think by calling it a box set is a little bit misleading. Because when I think of an LP box set, I've got my Beatles box set. I've got my Devin Townsend by a Thread box set. I have my Emerson Lake and Palmer box set with the five records in there. This is just a really good extended live recording from Genesis. What I kind of appreciate for it is that they at least try to touch base with every period from Genesis, So you have the early stages with the musical box, Stagnation, Harlequin, and Harold the Barreled. Get 'Em Out by Friday, Watcher of the Skies, Dance with the Moonlit Night, and Carpet Crawlers being the first disc, side A and side B. So it kind of takes care of the Peter Gabriel aspect, even though the last 2 tracks are done by Phil Collins. And I feel like that's a little bit of I don't know, it breaks the flow a little bit, especially when it's kind of like the intro of Dancing with the Moonlit Night. And that goes into the full track of the Carpet Crawlers. It's a little bit of a bait and switch that Genesis liked to do back in the day. But then you have kind of the midpoint. I feel as though they didn't want to touch the Seconds Out era, so we kind of jump over the Seconds Out and go right into the I guess the tour was From the Mouth of the Monster, with the And Then There Were Three, going right into the Duke Suite on that third side, and the fourth side being more of the like single tracks from And Then There Were Three, which I appreciate. I feel as though outside of I Know What I Like, and I always kind of wish that they would have put out a live album from that era, from the And Then They Were Three. Like I think the BBC recording that this box set comes from, but it's not a non-official one. It's a bootlegged DVD. The audio is kind of crap, but I still really enjoy that tour, and I have the From the Mouth of the Monster bootlegged album in my discography there. And then the last one, I feel as though they did kind of done dirty the later part of Genesis, because the 5th side on here is just the first side of the Genesis self-titled work. Then you have Throwing It All Away, No Son of Mine, and Driving the Last Spike. And I feel like, I never really like Throwing It All Away. It's one of the weaker tracks from the later era of Genesis. No Son of Mine is fine, but again, from We Can't Dance, it's one of my least favorite singles from that. And Driving the Last Spike is great. I really like how they finished it all off. So, in terms of the material that's found on the LP, I think they do their best to try to touch, as I mentioned before, all the different eras of Genesis. And I think instead of showcasing a full concert from any one era and only kind of taking the best pieces of it, it does feel a little disjointed, and it makes for an awkward start and finish. Listen, the way that I listen to this and the way I have been listening to this is I will listen to one side of a record or one disc that focuses in on one era. I will listen to the whole Duke Suite that's on the 3rd side of the record, but I won't listen to the first album or the later albums. I'll just listen to that one. And I also feel as though if you have the Wembley tour from the 80s, if you have the We Can't Dance album, even if you have a little bit of the 3 sides live, And then you have kind of like the box sets. I have the archive, the first one. I'm still trying to find the second one. Unfortunately, that one's eluded me. But like if you have all these other live recordings from Genesis, I feel like this is mainly like a fans only, like a fans club. And you don't really need the LP in that sense because it is substantially shorter. But if you don't have any of those, this is a nice little companion piece to the official live album. The Three Sides Live, the We Can't Dance, the When in Rome. You know, if you get those 3 albums, you really kind of have this box set, you know, or at least this LP, because it is from those different touring eras. The only one that's kind of missing from that is that from the Mouth of the Monster, you know, the tour that was between the Three Sides Live and the Seconds Out. So yeah, for this one, like I want to say stream it, but you can't find it on streaming services, and I wouldn't necessarily pay the absorbent amount. You know, like this isn't a cheap triple disc. This is a pretty expensive triple disc. It's more than like $50 to $60, which in this economy, are you kidding me? Like I have to really, really love something to spend more than $60, even if it's a 3-disc album, you know? So that's kind of where I'm at for the LP. You know, it's short, it's sweet, it's to the point, and you know, you kind of get what you want. I do feel as though it's a better investment to go for the actual CD box set. For the one hand, I think it's cheaper, and you get a lot more music from it. It's 5 CDs, so they pack in a lot more, and they go deeper into the catalog as well. And I like a lot of what they do with this one. I mean, they have the whole Duke suite in there, but they also put in the Turn It On Again, which is missing from the Duke suite on the vinyl. On the one hand, I like how it's kind of divided in that, you know, you start really early, and you even have some really early tracks from Genesis, like Shepherd, Plasticity, Let Us Now Make Love from the Genesis to Revelations, and some of their demo stuff that they did really, really well in the past. Fountain of I've been corrected so many times on this, and I always just want to say the way that I've always said it, which is the Fountain of Semelix. But because people keep correcting me on it, anyway, obviously you know what I'm talking about. If you correct it, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't know what I'm talking about, ask and I'll write it out. The one thing that I will say is I wish that and I mean, you can only work with the material that you have, right? So I have Stagnation a number of times now on a live disc. I also have the Lost Radio sessions, the BBC sessions from the 70s, 1970 to 1972. So I kind of already have a few of these, like Shepherd, Plasticity, and Let Us Now Make Love is literally the first side of this album, and I already have it, right? Fountain of Semelix and the Musical Box, again, I already have that. Stagnation, already have. Harlequin, but I wish that we had some more of the deeper cuts, and this is what I was mentioning at the very beginning. I don't know if Genesis toured Seven Stones, which is a track that I would have loved to hear live. I don't know if they did like Visions of Angel or White Mountain or Dusk from Trespass, but you know, I've already heard The Knife that they did on disc 3 of here, and Stagnation that they've already, but also like Looking for Someone. I actually had to pull out my Trespass album to be like, what other tracks were from Trespass that they haven't done? But the fact that they actually touch upon some of these that never really got the light of day from any of their other official releases, it was nice to kind of have them in this little box set. And I mean, it sounds great. The Twilight Ale House, I always called it Elder House, but the Twilight Ale House is quite nice and quite good, but I also feel as though it's the one that was found in the Genesis archive. Going on to disc 2, the fact that they have the Burning Rope on here, because Burning Rope and One for the Vine are 2 tracks that I really, really wish that they would put officially on a live album. When Seconds Out and Three Sides Live was getting the big 2007 remix and remastering, I was shocked that Three Sides Live had some of those tracks. Like I believe it had it didn't have Burning Rope, but it had Fountains of Semelix, and it had One for the Vine. And I'm like, this is amazing. You know, like this is, I'm so shocked, and I'm so glad that they have these tracks on there, because as you can see, they were touring with those tracks. But I was kind of saddened that when they put it out on the Blu-ray, it's audio only. And I'm like, ugh, at least the copy that I have. I don't know if it's different for other ones. The other thing that I love is, again, I've already kind of touched upon it with this one, but the expanded aspect of it, and the tracks that are also found on here that's not found on there. As I mentioned, Burning Rope. I love the Dance on a Volcano drum duet and Los Endos. I love how it has the what I used to call, from Three Sides Live, like the little medley that they had with In the Cage, The Raven, and Afterglow, that 3-track medley that I love from Three Sides Live. That alone is worth picking up Three Sides Live. And then you have Mama and Domino that I thought was really good. And I love the fact that it's almost the full Wembley concert from 1987. I still wish that they had just put it out on a physical disc, like an audio disc or an audio package, rather than the DVD or Blu-ray. I wish they would get the Blu-ray package. I really, really do. The one kind of bugaboo that I do have about this a little bit is that the 4th CD, the second last CD, because there's a 5th CD, has Not About Us and The Dividing Line from Calling All Stations. And I know out there, because I've seen it, and I'm kicking myself that I didn't pick it up, but I saw that there is a live album from that tour, from the 1998 tour of Genesis, where they were touring Calling All Stations. And I wish that they would have more of that on this box set, because I know it's out there and I know that they have those masters, and I'm really wishing that they would either send it back out again or have more on this box set, like maybe have that as CD5 or at least more of it. Because The Dividing Line is my favorite track from Calling All Stations, but I also do love Congo, and I also love the title track of Calling All Stations. So I wish that there was more tracks on here from the Ray Wilson era of Genesis, because it's people forget about it, and I feel like people kind of push it over to the side almost as if it doesn't count, but that was a very interesting and very exciting time for Genesis, and I just wish that we kind of pay tribute a little bit more to it, especially when they tour after that, like the When in Rome and The Last Domino. They obviously pretend like it doesn't exist, and that's a shame to the hard work and the effort. And I'll be the first to admit that Calling All Stations isn't their best album, but it's far from their worst. Abacab exists. So, I wish that they would, kind of put forth that kind of music and remind people that, hey, there's still some good music on this album. So that was just a little bugaboo, because then they go from The Dividing Line into the 5th track, which is the Kembworth, I think is how you pronounce it, from 1992, which is very much the Way We Walk tour. If you already have the Way We Walk, it's practically the same thing. It's just a different show. It's the BBC show rather than the recorded show. And it feels very similar. No Son of Mine, Driving the Last Bike, The Old Medley, Fading Lights, Hold On My Heart, and I Can't Dance. It's pretty much, but not quite, the whole longs of the 2 discs. And it's fine, So I actually much prefer the CD version of this box set, not only because there's a lot more music and it's also a little bit less expensive, but you really do get this really fancy book with it as well. It's held together and it's a lot easier to read. All of the liner notes that is found, or at least most of them, is found on the slip covers of the individual discs on the LP, but it's not the same. It's definitely not the same. So yeah, I would actually pick this one up. I would honestly recommend picking this one up. It's a brilliant 5-disc package. It has a lot of material on it. The sound quality, for the most part, is pretty good, especially since in the past, when they've re-released these kinds of things, sound quality has been kind of bad. Like the DVD that I have from the Mouth of the Monster era tour is not great. It's really bad. It's very tinny. The treble's really high up. It doesn't sound all that great. The sound quality on here is fantastic. It's really, really good. So whoever went through and remastered and just kind of scrubbed these tracks through did a fantastic job of it. So I need to applaud them for that. So this is definitely worth it. The LP, probably not, because you're spending more money and you're getting less. Even though, my preferred way of listening to music is through a record, get the CDs. They're much, much better. And so, yeah, the package overall, I think I've already kind of alluded to my overall thoughts about it. I don't know why. I understand why it's probably a lot more expensive if you add more discs, but I would have very easily paid more to get more in the LP version. The LP version was a letdown. If I just picked that up, I would have been very disappointed. But the fact that I have the CD version of it, it picked up my enjoyment a lot more in that case. I have no problem plunking down like $300 or $400 for a 5, 6, 7 disc album package, like a box set. You know, I've done it before, and I definitely will do it again. So a little disappointed in that sense of how that was structured, but I don't know, more Genesis is still good Genesis in my sense. That's what I've kind of got. My overall take, CD, thumbs up, LP, my thumb's kind of in the middle and shaking a little bit. That's kind of where I'm at for that. But that's all of my thoughts about this. CD, definitely worth it, pick it up. LP, meh, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You can't win them all. But that's it for me. What did you guys think about this album, this box set, this Genesis conglomeration? Do you have the CD version? Do you have the LP version? Are you crazy like me and have both? Let me know all about that by commenting down below. And I think that's all I've got for you guys today. Yeah, that's all I've got. So thank you all so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.